This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new values, and a new experience.
Welcome to the G-Spot Podcast. I'm your guide, Katie Silcox, bringing you your weekly self-love soundbite. Join us for conversations around sex, spirit, and all things self-care. All things self-care. All things self-care.
This is a journey into sound.
Uno, dos, tres, cuatro.
You are a G-Spot Podcast with Katie Silcox.
As you know, this podcast is sponsored by Ahara Ghee, one of my favorite Ayurveda products. But did you know that over at Ahara, you can also buy something called Maha Ghee? It's made at the Green Ashram in Gujarat, and it's from Indian Gir humpback cows. Now, this is for the real Ayurvedic purists, because guys, what this means is they are beautiful hand-milked humpback cow. It's probably one of the only places you're going to be able to get this. So head over there. Also, with the amazing knowledge that their ghee is tested for Roundup and really beyond organic. This is so important. What I love also about this company is that they are the first in the world to be animal welfare certified by A Greener World. This helps support transparency in agriculture and environmentally sustainable farming practices. So, I know you don't need any more convincing, but lastly, it's the best ghee in the world. It's the one I use, and you should head over there now for Ahara Ghee. We'll give you all the link in the show notes.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the G-Spot. I'm here with the beautiful Erin Cole Jones. Erin Cole, I'm thinking of, all right, let's start over. Erin Claire. Take two. No, you have to. When I used to work at Yoga Journal and I would do videos, they called me One Take Silcox. I never messed up. This is literally the first time it's happening. Erin Claire Jones. Okay, let's start over. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the G-Spot. I'm here with Erin Claire Jones. Today, we are going to be talking about human design, which is something I know very little about. Erin is certainly someone that has an expertise in it. She is a leadership coach and she specializes in this modality. She has worked with lots of people. Her work's been featured in Forbes, Mind Body Green, Well and Good, and she has shared this work with so many different podcasts online. Erin, welcome to the G-Spot.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I think we should just start in for folks that are listening. What is human design?
Yeah. So human design is a system based on your exact time, date, and place of birth that basically gives you your energetic DNA. So what I mean by that is how you're designed to make decisions, communicate, work within teams, digest food, all the things. It's not meant to kind of put us in a box. It really gives us kind of just like the language to understand our operating system. So I think that I always remind my people is just like, take what resonates, leave the rest. You know what I mean? It's meant to be a system that really feels empowering and like allows us to step into who we are even more and doesn't limit us.
That is so closely related to how I would define Ayurveda. It's like, I love what you said about it's a way of understanding your inherent operating system.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and it doesn't mean that you've got to do it. You know what I mean? Like you might be Pitta or Kapha and you're like, I want to do it this way. But like often when we align with our operating system, things just feel better and we find so much more flow in our lives. And so I think that, and I'm sure this isn't true in your work too, but I feel like often when I'm sitting with people, it's not about telling them stuff they don't know. It's like stuff they so intuitively know, but have never like really had a language for. And so basically what I'm doing more than anything is just giving them permission to step into it even more.
Right. That is exactly Ayurveda. I mean, it is so like I'm not sure how deep you've gone into Ayurveda, but most people are aware of the doshas, but
of course
there is your prakriti and your vikriti, and your prakriti is like what you were inherently born as, and it's like God-given. Like, thank you so much that Erin Claire and Katie are both fiery. I mean, you have a ton of fire, so do I. Like, that's what makes us who we are, and like how do we celebrate that and not like always drink margaritas and like, you know, do fiery things all the time? That's going to exacerbate it.
Totally, and balance it. Exactly. So I think that like what I always say with human design is it kind of just like reveals like all the energetics that are underneath the surface and kind of just like gives us a language for them. So it feels like similar. It's just kind of giving us like a language for things that are just inherently there, but we haven't been able to communicate about before. So
Well, before we dive in, what I would love is so for folks listening, Erin is going to like kind of use me as her guinea pig, and I'm really excited about this actually, selfishly. But before we dive into more of human design, I'm really curious as to your backstory and like how you came to this and how you fell in love with it.
Totally. I mean, it was like so not the plan. I mean, I think 10 years ago, I would have been like, what in the world? That is definitely not the path I'm going down. I think that I came from a world of working at startups and working in business. Like I wrote my thesis in college on social entrepreneurship. Like I was so interested in business and really having a social impact in work. And I was working for a bunch of startups for the first few years of my career. And I think that I was just like consistently observing a lot of dysfunction. It felt like it was like amazing ideas and amazing people, but like no one really understood each other. And I think my fascination was always just like with the people. And I was kind of the one that people would come to and just like vent to. And then, simultaneous to that, I was always just exploring different modalities. Like I've been doing that since I was in high school. You know what I mean? Just like, doing different trainings and certifications and just learning. And that was mostly kind of for my own journey and my own development. And then in 2015 in New York, where I live, I was at a gathering and a guy sat next to me and he was like, I want to look up your human design. I'd never met him before. He didn't even know my friend, like he didn't even live in New York. And I was like, okay. And he looked at my chart and just started reflecting back to me so much stuff that felt so intuitive and felt so like me. And I was like, I am not operating according to any of that. You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to be like the biggest doer. And like, I just like my design is like the opposite of that. And so I just felt like a lot of relief that night. And he ended the conversation by being like, I think Erin, I think that you should do this. Like, and I think that we should work together. And I was just like, what are you talking about? Like, he was just kind of observing so much compatibility in our designs. And anyways, long story short, I think that like slowly I like ended up going to LA. We reconnected. He started to show me how human design could not only be used on an individual level, but to transform business. So to kind of like help people work better together and engineer teams that are more functional. And I was just like blown away. And so I basically like stepped fully into it. We built a company together for 2 years as partners in terms of really bringing this not most to individuals, but also really to companies. But we were also building at a time where like no one knew what human design was. It was totally out there and it was like a lot of resistance. And so I gave up on human design for like 2 years in 2017. I was like, no one cares. No one wants to hear about it. Like I'm going to keep mastering it because I think that like there's so much gold in here, but I can't also force the timing. And then the timing was right. And I launched my own practice at the beginning of 2018. And it's just been a wild roller coaster, amazing journey since. And I think that like my intention with human design is always to make human design as accessible and practical and actionable as we can. I think that so often we don't need more information. We just need the right information at the right time. And I think that I work with a lot of skeptics. I work with a lot of companies as well as individuals. And so like, I'm always honing this ability to just make it feel like empowering and fun and exciting and useful rather than like, this is a thing you have to believe, it's more just like, this is a really amazing tool we can use. So, and my boyfriend is now my business partner. He does other things as well, but he's been such a powerful balancing force to help me make it more accessible.
That's so similar to my experience with Ayurveda as far as like
Really?
the timing being perfect or imperfect. And so for everyone out there listening, just like if you're interested in something, just like stick with it. Like people have told me so many times, like you will never make any money doing Ayurveda. And I'm like, really? Well, I did, so all right, we could talk on that for many hours, but so what is human design? And let's get to my chart.
I'm ready. Okay. So it's so funny. I remember early on in my business, I was talking to my partner. He's like, Erin, people just like love learning about themselves. I was like, yeah, this is just like satisfies such a like kind of primal need, but
or a narcissistic need.
I don't want to say that, but I hear you. But I think that like it's so fun, and so just so you guys know, in human design, there are 2 billion different configurations. Everybody is incredibly unique. At the highest level, though, there are 5 different types. So I will just say it's the first distinction. So if you're like, I don't know if that resonates with me, just know there's more layers that really create more nuance. So high level, there are manifesting generators, projectors, reflectors, and manifestors. You're a generator.
Me.
Do you remember that from your first time?
Yeah, and I was so upset, I have to tell you, because I was like, I love to like work for 3 hours and then literally like lay around for the entire afternoon. And so when I read the types, I was like, I'm gonna be the one that just lays around all day. Yeah. And then they were like, you're a generator, like a workhorse. I'm like, no, I'm not. But anyway, I believe I could be. Yeah.
We'll talk about it. But
okay.
Yeah, but this is a good example where it's like, like take it in if it feels empowering and it like allows you to do what you do even better. But if it's like doesn't, then let it go. So I think in terms of being a generator, like I hate the language out there around being like the workhorses and they're here to just like do other people's stuff. Like that's not the point. The point is that like you've got so much life force and so much energy and so much vitality. And like the idea is that you're kind of meant to wake up in the morning with a full tank of energy, to use up your energy in super satisfying ways, whether it's work related or not, and then kind of crash just like fulfilled and exhausted and wake up recharged. And the idea is that the more you kind of are saying yes to what you enjoy, like friendships, work pieces, all the things, like the more energy you'll have. And you kind of just have this like super magnetic energy where when you're doing what you love, like people just cannot get enough of you.
Well, that's true.
But the lesson really so much for you is around boundaries. Like because you have so much vitality and life force and energy, people are like, can you do this? Can you hang with me here? And so for you, your biggest work is just being like, and we can talk about another layer of your design that relates to this, but it's really about kind of tuning into your gut to be like, am I really available for this? Am I really excited by this thing? And just like really giving yourself permission to be healthily selfish in what you say yes to, knowing that you have the positive impact you're meant to when you're actually like lit up and energized by the thing, and you don't want it to be the opposite.
Yeah, that resonates a lot.
It does. Yeah. And so, it is just like for you, and for all generators and manifesting generators, just always taking inventory, asking yourself, like, what are the pieces of my life that light me up the most, that energize me the most? I'm going to do more of those things. What are the things that are the most exhausting, the most draining, the most depleting? Can I hand any of those things off in your business? This piece is really depleting. If I can hand it off, I will. Just so you have a little bit of context, like I'm a projector. So I'm the laying around type that you're referencing.
Lucky girl.
I'm not good at that, but I think that like so much of being a projector, just so you guys that know a difference, is, projectors are really here to kind of be advisors, leaders, guides, teachers, but like just aren't here to do all the doing. And we just like aren't great doers. And often it's our gift is really in our perspective. So it's not that we don't have energy, but it really is that means that our energy is going to operate in ebbs and flows, and so really kind of leveraging the energy and it's there, resting when it's not, and not trying to kind of keep up with the doers around you. As a projector, I have a boyfriend and business partner who's a generator. So like that is such a powerful combination of business. So is that all clear for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So one piece I want to share about being a generator, then I'd love to hear your reflections and if it resonates, but all types will have a strategy. And so your strategy as a generator, and this would be true for manifesting generators too, is that your strategy is basically magnetism. The idea is that you're not really meant to chase after anything. Life is just meant to show up in your world. And your work is to keep your awareness open and see what activates your gut. As soon as you get a gut response, you can go make the thing happen. You could see somebody on Instagram, you could read an article, you're like, I want to talk to them. Like, you're just waiting for something to kind of light up your gut to confirm to you that you're the energy for something, rather than like having an idea and be like, I've got to go make it happen now. You're kind of waiting for your body to be like, this is the time. And so your work is I got to keep your awareness open and see what shows up. How does that resonate with you?
Well, on so many levels, like deeply personal and career wise, like this idea of magnetism is so foreign to me, even though I know I'm a magnetic being, but
yeah,
sometimes the thing that we are is the last thing we see and know about ourselves, right? And people will be like, Katie, like, no, like you go into a room, people have told me, like, and you start talking and then people listen. Like, I don't know that because I think everyone's like that. But what I'm really hearing, and I'll admit it's really hard for me, is this idea of letting things come. Yeah. I'm very much a like, get out there, make it happen kind of gal. And it's served me well on a number of levels, but it's not, and I just turned 40 and it's kind of that period of life where you're really reassessing everything and saying, I really don't get turned on by this idea of fame and fortune anymore. I'm not turned on by that. And it's like that midlife crisis of what is life really meant to be? And the magnetism and letting things come feels really good. Really, really good. And boundaries has always been like a huge challenge for me. I'm just like, I can fall in love with a house plant or a telephone pole. Like I'm, it's very much like, seems to fit the bill.
Yeah. And the idea is just to always kind of pay attention to where you're pushing versus where you're allowing. And like the thing is, like, again, you're still such an energy being. Like when you allow things to come and then you get lit up by them, then you can be like such a force in making that thing happen. But you're basically kind of waiting for that confirmation that it's the right use of your energy.
Or the
so you
wrong.
don't kind of get
Like
or the
run,
wrong.
run fast.
Exactly. So you don't get kind of stuck in a thing that's not for you. And like another key piece of your design. So we all have different authorities in human design, which is basically around how we're designed to make decisions. So you're an emotional authority. I'm also an emotional authority, even though I'm a different type. And so basically what it means for you is that like you've got this super strong gut response as a generator, like a very like visceral feeling in your belly, and you're kind of meant to use that for all your small decisions and daily decisions. But for the big decisions, you're actually not meant to make decisions in the moment. So the best thing that you can do, I know, which is like the opposite of the way that I was operating, but the idea is that like it's so healthy to just like sleep on things and give yourself a beat, like not indefinitely, but like 1, 2, 3 days to kind of confirm that your initial instinct was correct. Because you've got this like emotional depth where you're always riding this emotional wave. It's like normal to have highs and lows and kind of just like have a lot of feelings, and the idea is that you don't really want to make decisions when you're on the high or the low. So giving yourself just a moment to kind of arrive somewhere else in your wave and kind of confirm that it's still the right thing, and making a decision from like a very kind of cool and calm place. I'll share briefly that when I'm on an emotional high, I say yes to everything. And then I wake up the next day and I'm like, what in the world did I commit to? And so just taking a moment is so healthy for you, and kind of allowing that time to just help you see the full picture. How does that feel to you?
I mean, that's dead on. And I've actually gotten better at that over the years of just like, well, let me just say this. Every time I've gone against my gut knowingness, I have suffered, and not in small ways. And every time I've done something on that emotional high, whether it be a positive or a negative emotional high, I've had to course correct. Like it's, like I recently went through a really, really, really horrible experience in a relationship, and went home to my mother's house. And the next day I woke up and bought a house in a town I don't live in. I just wanted to get away from this person. And now I'm turning right around and selling the house. I mean, it made no sense to buy it.
Totally.
So I'm just giving this really embarrassing example of like making a decision from an unstable emotional space. It always bites me in the ass. But I also have a karma, and I don't know if this is in the chart, but like God loves me so much that she's just like, man, you really fucked up, but I'm going to like help you get out of this, little sister. Like I know God will like help me make honey out of my past pain.
Totally. 100%, and I think that like, and it is like by doing it and making those quote unquote mistakes, or just like, then we just learn, you know what I mean? Like, I think that like, I still make impulsive decisions, and I'm still like, oh my God, Erin, like you really like, come on, so it's just like, it is through practice that we start to trust it. And this is a really useful one to know if you're in a partnership with somebody, or have kids, or you're working with people, because like, while you and I need a little bit more time, there are some people that have clarity in the now for all their decisions. This would be true if you're a sacral authority, if you're a splenic authority. So my partner is sacral. And so like, it's so useful to understand that difference and not force me to be quicker or him to be slower, And so it's just such a useful thing to understand, because we're all meant to make decisions really differently.
So some people actually, it's good for them to make decisions from an emotional place.
Not necessarily an emotional place, because they don't want to like, ride other people's emotions, but it's more that some people like, well, you have a very clear gut response in the moment that you're kind of meant to use for all the small decisions. Some people are meant to use that for the big decisions too. They get that full body gut yes in the moment, they're like, I'm in, because they don't have that same kind of wavy experience that you and I always do. And then there's some people that it's all about their kind of intuition in the moment, which is like a more quiet knowing, and it's super spontaneous. So they're actually meant to be very impulsive. Makes sense?
Very interesting. Yeah.
And one thing that's also interesting about your emotional piece is that like there are aspects of our design where we project out our energy, and aspects of our design where we kind of take in other people's energy and we're a little bit more fluid.
Oh, I want to hear this.
So you and I both project out our emotions, meaning we set the emotional tone of our space. Meaning if you're feeling amazing, the people around you are like, I feel great, you know, and if you're like, if you are not, they're going to feel it too, you know? So being aware of that is really useful. So, you know, where some of the areas in which you're more open, you know, you're very open in your identity, meaning that like, you're not really here to have like a super fixed sense of like, this is who I am and I'm going to figure out who I am. Like who you are is always changing. Like what you were sharing earlier about the kind of like what crisis or exploration you're in right now. It's like, you could be in a place where like, I did this and now I'm moving on to this. Like the more helpful question to ask yourself is always not who am I, but like what feels like me today, you know, and how can I just like continue to honor that and trust that it is meant to keep evolving and meant to keep changing. How does that feel to you? Do you feel like you have a more fluid identity, or do you feel like you're a little bit more like, I've got to be one thing?
Well, I feel like I've been doing a lot of work in my therapy with parts work. I don't know if you're familiar, but where it's so beautiful. It's this, I mean, it won't be foreign to you. It's this idea that we have so many different parts in our psyche and our somatic psyche experience. And some of them are little and some of them are other people's voices, you know, and like each of these different parts kind of show up given certain experiences or triggers. And so that really makes sense to me, what you're sharing, in the sense of like, this feels like a part of me that's really young, or tomorrow I feel like I'm seated in that wise woman, that elder voice, you know. And so that kind of resonates a lot. But I do think that behind all of that there is like this core essence that is kind of unchanging, like
Yes.
Yeah.
And the point is just that you might express it in really different ways in different times throughout the day and throughout your life. You know what I mean? You might be around different groups of people that pull out different parts of you, you know? It's not to say that there's definitely, of course, that essence. You have such fluidity in how you can express yourself and who you can be. And one other piece I would just add to that is that you're also like super sensitive to your physical environment. So one of the best things that you can do to make sure you're kind of headed in the right direction and attracting the right people, the right opportunities, is to be in spaces that feel good. It's like being in a city that feels good, a home that feels good. If you're going on a date, being in a restaurant that feels good, the hotel's got to feel good. Like you magnify so much in your space. So just like making sure you're magnifying energy that actually feels correct for you to kind of take it and magnify.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I get to be in beautiful places.
I know, exactly. So, you know, do you want me to just keep riffing on some pieces? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. And just to clarify for everybody listening, you found this out by looking at the time of day that I was born and the date and the place, just sort of like we would do in astrology.
Exactly. And then when you look it up, and we can include a link in the show notes if you want, but there's a link, erinClareJones.com/lookup. There are other places online. You can enter it there and you'll see this crazy looking chart. It's not going to intuitively make sense to you, or it might, and that would be amazing. But I think that like, take note of like your type, your strategy, your authority. Those are the pieces we've talked about so far. And when I talk about areas that where we're projecting out our energy or taking in energy, those are the shapes that are either colored in, where we're projecting out energy, or white, where we're taking it in. Another area in which you're a little bit more fluid is your voice. Like you're not also meant to have like a super like, this is how I talk and this is how I always express. Like you're kind of always communicating yourself in different ways, whether you're drawing from your emotions, your intuition, your mind. And so most important thing is to kind of make sure you're waiting to be invited in to share. And that's when your words can have the most impact. And you also are not really designed to plan what you're going to say. You know, it's like kind of trusting the fluidity. Like you've got such an ability to kind of tune into exactly what needs to be said in that moment by those people. But that, you know, often cannot happen if you're trying to plan it and be more rigid about it.
That is super resonant with me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll craft out my lectures, but I never really plan what I'm going to say. I'm wondering if you see anything in my chart. Like one of the things I noticed that I'm really trying to heal in myself is like this sense that it would be, I guess, a negative way of saying it is like codependent tendencies of like, I'm with someone and I can really feel what they need or how they can heal. And I'm like, oh, I can totally help you with this, especially in intimate. I have really great boundary. My students that are listening to this will be like, oh, it seems like Katie, I have great boundaries with my students. I have really great relationship with my students in Shakti school. And but boundaries with men has been really challenging in the sense that I'll be around because I happen to be heterosexual. I'll be around a man and I'm like, oh, I know everything that will help you, and let me just like completely annihilate my own needs and like become your healer person. I'm wondering if you see anything of that healer archetype. That's obviously there's a beauty in that, but also there's like
Totally.
a deeply problematic side to that.
Yeah, I think that like the healer archetype is definitely there. Like the areas that are open are where we're kind of here to be wise and eventually teach and sell ourselves. And like you've got what we call, one of your centers is open, which is very much around physical and just like health. And so it's basically around kind of supporting people through their healing journeys, and also being so tuned in to kind of exactly what things are off balance in somebody and what support they need. So yes, that is 100% a gift that is very present in your design. In terms of like, I think that like it is really about taking your time to feel into whether or not this person is actually ready for your support. And the potential shadow element of actually that same aspect of your design is a tendency to kind of hold on to things for too long and have a hard time letting go. And so I don't know whether that's ever showed up in your relationships, but I think so much of your work is making sure you're not like holding on to something just because it feels like secure and known and familiar, and that you're giving yourself permission to like take risks and keep moving. But also another piece I would share is that you definitely are meant to like find wholeness through partnership, through connection. Like
Really?
you just like that. Yeah.
You can see
I mean,
that?
well, just that there are some people that are very naturally independent, and it doesn't mean that they like can't be in partnership, but like they're just kind of have this natural wholeness, like they're very self-contained. Whereas like your energy gets so activated when you're around other people that it kind of creates this amazing sense of wholeness within yourself. It doesn't always have to mean like you're sitting with a partner. You know what I mean? You might feel stuck and you're like, I'm going to go to a coffee shop and be activated in new ways. But like just being around other people's energy creates so many new kind of connections and pathways within yourself that kind of like open up so many doors for you.
That's so beautiful, and I think deeply true. And I'm like a consummate hermit. I am like, everyone thinks
Got
I'm
that in your design.
Oh my God, good.
Like, yeah.
Everyone thinks I'm this extrovert because put a camera in front of me or, sit with you and I love it. But like, I'm actually a total introvert. Like I can spend days in my house and never talk to anyone and be totally fine with that.
Well, it's so funny because like you've got the hermit in your design, and this comes from a place called your profile. You're a 2-5 profile. I'm a 6-2, and basically the 2 numbers, the hermit. So I feel you. And also we all kind of have, so let me talk about that first. So with the profile, like the hermit piece is very much, it's always going to be balanced with a more outward facing aspect of your design. So it's not like you are designed a hermit all the time.
Right.
Yeah. But it basically means that like having time alone to just be in your own flow and do your own thing is so healthy and so restorative for you. And also like you're very much meant to be a natural what you do. Like you're not really here to do the things that feel like super hard and super challenging, but like doing the things that come easy. And there's a part of like your magic where like you might not be able to explain how you do what you do, you just do it. And so it's kind of like honoring that innate genius. So there's that hermit piece, but it is also balanced with this very like outward, very charming, like problem solver and just like fixing. I think also actually this relates to what you were asking about before. Like you got a real gift at like fixing things and like making things better and solving things in really new ways. I think your biggest work is knowing what's worth solving and what's worth fixing and what's not.
Erin Claire, don't make me cry. That is like the most hardcore truth you've said to me so far. Like knowing what it's worth to fix. Like
totally.
That's just
totally.
So yeah.
And it's just like, and I think that, another thing is people can project a lot of things onto you. I don't know if you have that experience.
Oh my
but
God.
Like,
yeah.
You've got this like kind of projection field in your design where people can kind of look at you and be like, oh my God, you'd be this kind of like coach or this kind of person or this kind of like savior in my life or this kind of partner or daughter or friend. And like your work is to be like, I see that you see me this way, but I am not going to construct my identity based on what other people see. Like your work is to kind of know yourself, know that core essence, know your gut well enough to be like, I'm only going to say yes to the things that are right and only going to fix the things that I feel so uniquely capable of solving. And I feel so ready to receive that.
Yeah. I mean, so many times on the podcast and even when I'm teaching at Shakti school, I'll just literally be like, look, last night I ate a whole pizza and watched the Great British Bake Show. Like, please don't project onto me that I'm just like this perfect Ayurvedic practitioner all the time, like, because sometimes students would be surprised that like every now and then I drink coffee or like, and it's like, wow, no. Like I study these things because I actually need them myself,
Totally.
Like I'm a normal lady. I struggle with a lot of stuff that everyone does.
Yeah, totally. I want to share the food piece. Are you interested in that?
Yeah, totally. Everybody's going to be like, I want to have my own session, and we'll let people know how they can connect with
Yeah.
you. And Erin's going to give you guys a discount as well. So
Yeah.
if you're wondering, we'll let y'all know.
Yeah. So I will say again, with all of human design, take what resonates, leave the rest. I feel like the food piece is it can be a little bit out there because it's such a different way of looking at food. And also it often is the more impactful once we've kind of been in our design or experimented with it for a while. So the first piece is that you're meant to be like a more consistent eater. So I don't know whether this is something that you do, but like your brain like needs a lot of fuel. And so it's like it's good to like eat when you wake up and like eat like meals and just like keep yourself kind of nourished throughout the day because like your brain just operates optimally when you do. You know, I don't know whether or not you fast, but often the recommendation for these people is not to fast.
Oh, fasting turns me into a psychopath. Like I tried fasting and I think there's some real benefits, but I'm amazed that you guys differentiate as we do in Ayurveda, but fasting does not work for me, nor does veganism. You know, like I need to
Yeah.
fuel myself.
Yes. And it's just like your brain needs it. You know, I'm the opposite. I'm just like, I'm meant to be super inconsistent, like eat when I'm hungry, drink when I'm thirsty, but my partner is more similar to you. And I used to always like, I don't understand why he needs such consistent nourishment, you know? And it was so useful to understand this difference. And then kind of the more specific aspect for you, you've got, you know, such a unique one. So your digestion in human design is called consecutive. And basically what that means, and like, again, it's weird, is that you're not really designed to mix all your food together. It's really good to kind of keep things separate. So rather than being like, I'm going to have like a stew or like, I'm going to have like a smoothie with tons of ingredients. It's like, you know what, I'm going to like eat my like cauliflower rice, and then I'm going to have some sweet potato, and then I'm going to have some spinach. So it's kind of like eating one thing at a time.
Wait, this is amazing. I need to clarify. So what you mean is I can eat cauliflower and sweet potato and spinach at the same meal, but it would be more
Yes.
beneficial that they were like in little piles on the plate rather than in a stew.
Exactly.
What? Okay, that's blowing my mind because that is how I ate growing up, and I would actually
People do it when they're young. Yeah.
I like would really criticize my poor mother and be like, you would just like boil the beans and then put the chicken on these. And it was just like, and that's why I loved Ayurveda, because we mix everything together and it's really spicy. But now my mom's going to love this. Like you're saying, it might be better for me to just be more plain with things.
More plain with things. Like for you, it's like the purest, simplest possible, you know? And like, and it is so interesting because when I share kind of people's digestion with them, so often they did it so intuitively when they were young. And then they got conditioned out of it. You know what I mean? Whatever it was, like yours is this, mine is about having like a lot of activity around me and like movement. And like, you know, like obviously that's not what we're taught, you know? And so I think that like, it's just something to play with. Like it is, I think that we do get conditioned out of so many aspects of our design, but according to your design, that's a really healthy way to nourish your body. And then also, you know, we all have kind of a really strong cognition or like sense, and yours is really just around taste. And so things just have to like taste great,
Yeah.
you know?
And I'm such a food is my lover. Like I am definitely someone that, you know, like Marie, who works at Shakti school, she's staying with me right now, and she'll just eat for fuel. And she
Right.
like, you know, she's a French woman that weighs like 80 pounds, you know, I mean,
Yeah.
not really, but like whereas I am like, how are you just eating so little? And she doesn't care. She eats whatever, you know, she's healthy, but food is definitely like a realm I have to like watch not to overindulge in.
Yeah. You know, and I think that like, it again, it's just like, but for you, it's meant to bring you so much pleasure. And so it's like, if things don't like taste right or feel right, just like honoring that, you know? So it's such an interesting thing. Like some people, it's good to like, you know, have like really calm environments. Some people are really sensitive to like the acoustics when they eat. There's just like,
so for me, does the environment, because I love watching in front of the TV and it's the worst thing. And Ayurveda says never do that. And it brings me so much pleasure to do that.
Eating while you're watching TV. You know, your design definitely doesn't say not to do that. Like, I think that like it is, I would say that like you're really sensitive to your space. And so it doesn't mean that your space has to be like super, you know, if it could be stimulating if you want. I would say like if the space feels right and good in your body, that's really good for you. Okay. I would say the most important piece for you is actually less about the environment. You know, obviously the environment's got to feel good because you've got that all through your design, but more about, you know, simplifying and purifying what it is you're eating.
Okay. I'm going to try this out.
You got to let me know how it goes. Yeah. Often with this one, that one in particular, it's like kind of the most dramatic changes when people really step into it. So, and it's interesting because, you know, even though you're meant to like eat in a more consistent way in terms of like exercise and moving your body, you're meant to be a little more in flow with that. So rather than kind of being like rigid, it's like doing it when you're inspired, when it really feels like the right time, when you're feeling stressed and you've got to sweat it out, but like not forcing rigidity in that area of your life. How are you feeling about all this?
Yeah, I'm 100% agreeing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it feels good.
So should I share a couple more pieces? How are you doing with time?
Sure, yeah, we're good.
Okay. So one other piece I would share is that there's an area in our design called channels, and these are basically just like our natural strengths. So if you look at your design, they'll see there are kind of lines, or potentially not if you're a reflector, but lines connecting one center to another, and it's got to be kind of a full connection. And so one of your strengths is basically the strength of creating intimacy with people. It's like you've got this.
I mean, you're a little freaking me out at this point. Like
You're like,
is
"Please
that
stop."
is dead. That's dead on.
So it's basically this ability to kind of penetrate into people's energy and make them feel like so cozy and connected and intimate in your presence, you know, and it's such a gift. But with this gift comes the awareness that like you've got to feel into relationships to know if anything's there. You know what I mean? Romantic, business, friendship, any of the things, because you create such a cozy connection, people can project on you. They might be like, oh my God, this is amazing. I want to be your friend. I want to be your partner. I want to work for you. You know, and I think for you, it's very much like, so glad that we've created this connection. I've got to feel into it.
Bye.
And I've got to know whether it's like, if there's really a bond here, if there's really something I can trust, you know, so you've got that ability, but you can really kind of bring it to so many different people and people can really feel that. I will say that sometimes people like kind of misinterpret this energy as like flirting, which is like, it's not always like,
Oh my God, you are going to crack up. So in high school, I was voted, you know how they have the senior superlatives? I was voted most flirtatious. And it shocked me because
Yeah.
I never thought I was I mean, I just thought
Yeah.
I was being myself, you know?
Isn't that amazing? That exactly. It's just like you create that, you know, you create that energy and that intimacy. And so people are like, what is there? You know, and like it's just like it's an energetic thing. So there's nothing that you can really like, you know, change there besides becoming aware of it and knowing that it takes time to like enter into things and knowing that you are an emotional authority. And because you've got this strength, like when you're entering into romantic relationships, like having a period of courtship and really feeling into something before like jumping in is so healthy for you.
Oh,
Do you do that or are you more impulsive?
Oh, Lordy me, girl. Like that is like the karma that I'm sitting on so hard right now of like when I meet with people, like let's say we're talking about romantic realm, but really it's everywhere. Like especially with men, like immediately first, second date, they'll tell me the darkest, deepest secrets. And they're like, by the way, I've never told anyone this. And I'm just like, wow, you know, that's a gift and I feel honored and I hold it with a lot of respect. But the downside of that is like I also can, like I said, I can feel really close to everyone really quickly, but there's an aspect I'm really owning right now of like self-protection because not everyone's like me, and honestly not everyone is trustworthy. And so I think my new mantra is like, hey, bye guys, is just really, like you said, like the courtship and giving things time and like the importance of that for me.
Yeah. And also, you know, another one of your channels or strengths is basically around really learning how to balance your needs with the people of the needs around, like with the needs of the people around you. So it's not like I'm going to just like forego all my needs to make sure they're okay. Or else I'm not going to like focus so much on my own that I can't be aware of them. Like you're so aware of what people need and what kind of support they need, but it kind of requires that really healthy balance, you know? And so rather than kind of jumping in. And also, you know, in terms of, do you feel those kind of natural ups and downs, those natural emotional waves within yourself?
Every minute.
Yeah. Only because, you know, the way that yours operates in particular is that like there can be these like small moments that kind of build up where it's just like a little bit of frustration here or here. And then there's kind of like an outburst or kind of like a release of some way, of some kind. And like my reminder for you is like in those moments, like it's just like accumulation of everything that came before. You know, those releases are healthy, but it's kind of paying attention to like how often they need to be released. So like in that moment, it's not like this is all because of this. It's like, it's because of so many things. I'm releasing it. And then I kind of like reset, you know, so just having that awareness, especially in partnership, can be really useful.
Yeah. And I mean, and then according to Ayurvedic wisdom, it's also lineages of that, lifetimes of that. And I feel like one of the things I teach is the way that so many of the women that are attracted to what we're doing, it's like there tends to be someone in most nuclear families that like agrees to like be the truth teller, to be the one that feels, to be the one that penetrates and asks the hard questions to our parents about what things were like. And I'm definitely that person. And I've seen a lot of incredible healing in my own family when I've said, hey, X, Y, and Z was my experience as a kid, or hey, X, Y, and Z happened to me. And then all of a sudden my mom, my sister, my dad are like, oh, well, that actually is true for me as well. And I have been holding this for 50 years, you know? And so I think that, but the shadow, or I don't even want to call it the downside, is just like the challenge of that is I don't feel that I was put on this planet to just like skirt along and have this like easy experience. I mean, it's been really hard to be the one that feels things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And like, and also there's just like such a natural depth in that way. And like, you really are meant to kind of just like go through those experiences so that you can become so wise in all those areas. You know, it doesn't make really any of it easier, but it makes you such a better teacher, you know?
Oh yeah.
So I think those are really the key. I mean, there's so much, but I also don't want to overwhelm your audience
Yeah,
or you.
And the entire listening audience knows every single one of Katie Silcox's darkest secrets.
So good.
But I think it's a great. I definitely want to have another session with you to like delve deeper. But
yeah,
is there anything else you kind of want to let people know about this before we kind of tell them where they can find you and more about your work?
I think that like, you know, there's so much information in human design. Like I can do one session with somebody or I can do like 30, you know what I mean? And like, I've done both those things. And I just think that I would just say, as I mentioned at the beginning, like take the pieces that feel the most resonant and useful for you in the moment, and you can always return back to it. You know what I mean? You can always kind of take in more pieces. So it's not a system where like, I've got to memorize it all and like embody it immediately. It's like, let me integrate these pieces and just like, let it keep evolving and keep deepening in this. So I just, it's meant to be a thing that we experiment and embody and not a thing that we have to like remember. You know, so just playing with that. I think that like if you're just starting human design, and we'll give you some opportunities to dive in, I would start with like your type, your strategy, and your authority. Just knowing those three pieces can be so transformative. There's so much more, of course, but like for you, it's that you're a generator. You're here to like be this like amazing energy, life force, vitality to bring things to life, that you're here to let things come to you. That's your strategy. And that you're also here to kind of really feel into things and wait before committing. And that's your authority.
I mean, those three things, if I could embody those, my life would completely change.
100%. It's by embodying those that the rest just snaps into place. And like other things give us the tools to do it even more. But it's like those, when we like enter into life from those places, everything shifts.
And the food. And I'm going to try the food piece.
You got to try the food piece and you got to let me know.
I will. This is so cool. I have to admit, I was a little bit like, I mean, I'm super woo-woo, so I'm down for whatever. But like, I'm also kind of like a scientific brain, and I was a little bit reticent around the whole like channeled wisdom. But now, I mean, it's really everything is channeled wisdom. Like the entirety of the Ayurveda is channeled wisdom. Yes, we're using a 5,000-year-old tradition that's been scientifically experimenting on plants and consciousness states, etc. But like, I'm super curious, and I think that you, if I can reflect back, are an incredible channel for this. And I feel really happy that there are more and more people who have such articulate capacity and intelligence that are diving into these more unicorn and rainbows topics, because that's really been me for so long, of just like I used to work in artificial intelligence. I was on a completely different path and gave up everything for yoga and Ayurveda, but I appreciate you and that ability to articulate it in a way that's really clean and clear. And
thank you.
Thank you for being on the Geese Spot.
Oh my God, thank you so much for having me. And that's like it's so my goal with the system, is just like translating it to make it more accessible and empowering and simple. So I so appreciate and I'm grateful for that reflection.
Yeah. Yay. So how can people find you? What's your contact details?
So I'm Erin Claire Jones everywhere. I share a lot on Instagram, Erin Claire Jones there. My website is erinclairejones.com. And if you want to dive deeper, we're going to do a discount for the blueprint. So basically the blueprint is a 30 plus page PDF on your unique design. So it kind of covers all those key pieces: the type, the strategy, the authority, the profile, the open centers, the channels. So kind of giving you like the operating manual that you can keep returning to kind of like keep returning to day after day, or like in moments of resistance that could kind of come back into alignment. What do you want the discount code to be?
We can make it maybe ghee. Just if
What do you like?
we use Shakti Love a lot. Let's do Shakti Love.
Shakti Love. Perfect. So it'll
Yeah.
be Shakti Love. And the URL is erinclairejones.com/blueprint. And then I also offer individual sessions, partnership sessions, team sessions, and then also do workshops every so often.
Great. We'll also put all the links in the show notes so people
Beautiful.
easily. All right, lady, thank you so much. This is
Oh my God,
awesome.
such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, and come back to Charlottesville. We'll
God.
hang out.
I would love that.
All right, thank you.
फूटे फूल अपन सुखे फूटे फूल